Mountain lakes and streams formed by the snowmelt mark their path. Having at least temporarily cleared the dense forest, the effort and suffering to get to the mountains has seemingly paid off in what the adventurers eagerly say is the reason they race, an unforgettable journey in the world's wild places. Still locked in the tangle of the lower forest, teams in pursuit of the race leaders, high above them, fight their way upward a few precious steps at a time. This level of effort in this unique environment can have a demoralizing effect on the racer who's trying to conquer the landscape. It isn't long before these teams have cleared the foliage and congregated on the way up the first steep sections and valleys of their trek. Further down the slopes, TeamGearJunkie.com and Nordwater choose different tracks through the woods, discovering the notorious element of the Wenger Patagonian expedition race, impenetrable forest. Soon, snow is drifting down at the height of summer in the Darwin Range, adding to the standing drifts that collect in these high mountains. Team Helly Hansen Prunesco completes their morning's journey successfully, covering the 16 mountainous kilometers in a little over 7 hours, a more than acceptable pace given the nature of the terrain and the difficulty of movement. Their next reward, a journey down a rope in a somewhat less than graceful fashion. The defending champions have cleared another hurdle and have just under 100 kilometers to go on foot in their journey to repeat their feat and go back to back in the world's most challenging expedition race. The current race standings look like this as the teams enter the Darwin Range. Helly Hansen Prunesco has a 4-hour 27-minute advantage over closest rival Untamed New England. Team Switzerland is 11 minutes back of the Canadians, with German team Herberts and Spanish team Europa Bermont at just over 5 hours behind the Brits. GearJunkie.com leads the American squads and is over 10 hours back of the leaders, followed by the rest. The Darwin Range of mountains rises up over 2,000 meters, located entirely within Chile's boundaries, and marks the highest points on the grand island of Tierra del Fuego. These obstacles, with their unpredictable weather, are the biggest in a series that the 56 athletes of the 2010 Wenger Patagonian expedition race must now face if they want to make it to the waters of the Beagle Channel and the finish line of the 554-kilometer event. Team Helly Hansen Prunesco finds themselves back in the dense forest after their rappel to the valley floor. Going through the thick foliage is further complicated by sizable streams and rivers that must be dealt with. The race is over the halfway point in terms of distance, but on this third day of racing, teams still have to conquer the bulk of the 114-kilometre trek through the 2,000-plus metre high Darwin Range. Once through the high passes, it's a challenging kayak trip across the Beagle Channel. One final trek through the dense forest, and those who are able to sustain will arrive back on the channel and the finishing line after a total of 554 kilometres. Water continues to impede the race-leading British in their pursuit of a second consecutive title. But all four teammates have done this drill before in Chilean Patagonia. The teams in pursuit of Helly Hansen Prunesco will be hard-pressed to match their pace. The Brits climb back out of the valley they rappelled into earlier today. It's a hard scrabble to regain elevation, but a drill that will be repeated many times before the sea level of the Beagle Channel at the end of the trek. The teams back of the leaders are still challenged by the mixed terrain they encounter in their pursuit. Dense forest with no man-made trails to ease their burden. Race day 3 comes to a conclusion with Helly Hansen alone in the lead. 7 teams in pursuit on the first trekking section and the remaining 6 teams yet to complete their cycling. Race day 4 finds the current leaders in a frustrated mood. They've spent a number of hours in vain searching for control point 10 and a set of ropes to aid in an unavoidable river crossing.
Pretty frustrated. Really hard enough just to get down to the river.
And we're 30 k's into a 114k trek, and we're now more than a day on.
As the team descends down to the obstructing watercourse, what they can't know is that the racers moved the ropes some 2 kilometres away from the marked map position to a narrower point for safety reasons. Word of the change didn't reach the team in time at their last checkpoint. With the race lead eroding by the minute, the team concludes that a water crossing without the aid of the ropes is inevitable, and they take the plunge. This 40-degree water is dangerous if exposure lasts too long. The shock to the system is debilitating from the onset. But the teammates make it with no ill effects. In the true spirit of adventure, the racers have conquered a problem and are now set to move ahead with the race. One squad not moving ahead is Team Fast and Light. Mark Childs takes the abandonment of the race hard and is consoled by his teammate. Mark has been suffering from vomiting and diarrhea for the past 12 hours out on the course, making it impossible to keep even liquids in his system. Team Fast and Light becomes the first casualty of the race. While the agony of abandonment plays at the edge of the mountains, deeper in, the Finnish team Nordwater excitingly moves down the ropes on the rappelling section. The backdrop is one of the race's most stunning vistas. Further back, Japanese team East Wind begin their trek, resolute and steady, a course of action that may not look speedy, but often ensures ultimate success in adventure racing. Since swimming the river, Team Helly Hansen is on the move again in earnest.
Get rid of a few kilometres now.
Traversing Colin Pass in the high mountains with relative ease. The adventurous feet are never dry on this interminable journey from lofty heights to boggy bottoms. More water crossings await the racers in every valley in the Darwin Range. Inevitably, the bog takes hold and a shoe is in risk of being buried in the muck.
We're not friends of the beaver right now.
The team encounters the handiwork of one of the neighbourhood's inhabitants, who is largely responsible for all of the standing water, the beaver. While native species thrive in the untamed terrain of Chilean Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego, an introduced non-native animal is wreaking havoc across the once pristine landscape. North American beavers were brought to the area in the 1940s in hopes of creating a lucrative fur trade. Now the animals number in the tens and possibly hundreds of thousands, deforesting indigenous trees at an alarming rate and transforming once pristine streams to stagnant bogs. With no natural predators and a forest that is unadapted at regeneration in the conditions the beavers create, the problem is at the point